While I don't doubt that there is subjugation of women in British Sharia courts, I'm not going to be quiet about what I feel is an underhand agenda of an incessant, calculating defamation of the entire Muslim population that many believe may be at the forefront of this caring for Muslim women critique, frenziedly blasting from all sides for many, many years now. It is an open secret that far, far worse is being done to abused, battered, neglected, and cheated on throughout their pregnancies, and then with young children, mothers in British, American, and other Western anarchic family courts who rip very young, thriving children from their devoted, abused mothers and give custody of them to the mother's appalling abusers before ordering them to pay often the father's mistresses or mothers-in-law child maintenance for their own children, the children they looked after like single mothers while they were married to those wicked psychopaths. Many of the children, especially young ones, even babies like in my case, expectedly got severely depressed and scarred for life, with anxiety, depression, and all sorts of addictions as escapism from being tortured in those courts when very young, blighting their lives forever. Some had been given to convicted pedophile fathers who raped them, some babies even to death, causing anal prolapse, with medical proof, according to the mothers, and what they distributed on our support sites, with no one allegedly ever being found accountable. Then many of those bereft mothers have their due divorce settlements stolen by what many believe to be thieving rackets that operate within those quasi-courts, throwing the now childless, grieving women on the dole, which is embezzlement of public money as well, not only the suspected taking bribe through corruption, and into extreme penury and depression. Allegedly, many corrupt judges encourage perjury, both by the abusers, some of whom are thought to pay them bribe, them and other court staff, and by various venal court staff like Kafka's officers. And others even lie in the judgments to stage cases themselves, like in my own case, where senior criminal court judge turned up in our family court he'd apparently never worked in and made things up in his judgment to set the case so that my abuser could win. Many believe for bribe, just like my abuser had always threatened he'd do, as everyone is on sale, his words. In my case, there were over 100 pieces of perjury by my abuser, by the judges, and by the Kafka's officer who simply made up her report as, "You did not come to this country to get your husband's money." Open jealousy and xenophobia, knowing she was totally unaccountable. All of them. A huge number of the perjury incidents were later evidenced by various documents from the police, the social services, the council hospitals, you name it. Then, like in a drug cartel-led enclave, a couple turned up and ordered me to forgo my due divorce settlement and pension, or I may never see my depressed toddler now living with total strangers again. A monetized toddler who dropped from 55 to 21% on the centile in weight. Under duress and terrified, I signed off my money, as they belligerently forced me to. To this day, 22 years on, I am not allowed to know the names of the two robbers, a man and a woman, who many believe have probably done similar to abused women and children as part of the corruption racket. Yet, I was told to shut my mouth up or I'd be punished even more severely, as I had the right and they had the might. Yes, a High Court judge in London, back then president of the family division at the Royal Courts of Justice, summoned me to threaten me. Even the police were sickened by my case, but they were not allowed to act when one decent judge, a proper judge, sent my file to them, as it was a criminal matter. And they read it alongside around 30 non-plus lawyers and told me that senior judges were so powerful in Britain that even the police were not allowed to act on their perceived illegal conduct, but had to ignore the crimes. That amazing judge overnight disappeared from our family court, likely sacked by the senior judge. A child abuser. All the whistleblowers, many understand, including rare good judges and lawyers who demand justice, are sacked. And all the complaints procedures are sham. When I took a pile of documentary evidence from all sorts of organizations to the Kafka's manageress in our town to prove perjury and child abuse by their officer. Words of the social services as well. The manageress told me nothing could be done. The complaints procedure was sham. A few Kafka's whistleblowers around the country have been sacked. Many of the terrified, robbed and grieving mothers have been denied all contact with their children as they bad-mouthed the fathers, their abusers, and cheaters who destroyed their families, or bad-mouthed or had an argument with the mistresses who both had to be worshipped. As many believe, most judges seem to indulge in adulterous domestic abuse of their own spouses, so they reward aberrant lifestyle in those disorderly courts. Degeneracy galore. Thousands are thought to have committed suicide and their bereft families are gagged. So are the media, who have known about this for decades. I believe that every single journalist mentioned here in the articles and pictures in this video and everywhere else, all of them know about this. Alongside other campaigners, I've written to tens of thousands of them and they all keep quiet. As the perpetrators of these horrific crimes order them to be quiet. I then found out mine was a tiny drop in an enormous ocean of similar cases, estimated by some academics to be likely over 10 million around the Western world for the last 60 or so years. Sadistic, globally orchestrated cases of torture of the 20% of the most extreme cases, with sociopathic abusers who use courts to destroy the women they abuse for years and avoid paying them anything, as women for them are worthless entities. I also discovered many hundreds of global academics, journalists, lawyers, even a few judges campaigning to expose this for many, many years, and some even for 50, 60 years, all in vain, as the legal and political perpetrators control the media. Some of those professionals who refuse to deliver the requisite acquiescence have been sacked, while Sharia laws have been incessantly blasted for having men making decisions for women, and no women as their judges. Many female judges in the mainstream courts are as evil as the most evil of the men, jealous, bitchy, mendacious, unprofessional, and just lavish, chewing all the decorative laws there only on paper to annihilate the mothers before them, especially if they are very beautiful or are due lofty divorce settlement, or they are foreign or whatever, like in my case. Plus, money, money, money. Sell the trials! The Kafka's officer in my case was a woman and fabricated her report, likely, I believe, for £5,000 bribe. That is my opinion. I know why I'm saying this. And I later found out that she'd done the same to at least one more mother I accidentally came across in our town, so that our children were given to our abusers, pushing them into severe depression and drop in weight. Tiny children, all boys, while the Kafka's officer followed me around the court before the final hearing and laughed in my face as I was sobbing and shaking with grief. A woman. Others, decent female judges, are mere voiceless mouthpieces for the cruelest and the most evil, corrupt, sociopathic male judges at the very, very top of the judiciary, who apparently, even if retired in their 80s and living in tax havens, tell them what to order, and in some cases protect abusers from wealthy families they apparently, almost certainly, personally know and are mates with. No one dares to say a word, as they may lose their job. It is abuse in the workplace. Many mothers have found out that their judges have been having affairs with fellow court staff and lawyers. It's been never acted upon. Virtually all in the media, parliament, various charity bosses, adequate charities, etc., know about certain cases, like one of a very wealthy, powerful and mendacious Jewish man who enjoys playing with dozens and dozens of women and children, who is so protected that virtually no one can sue him, and all evidence against him in various institutions, public bodies, is ripped up, literally erased. The media have even tried to expose him for 15 years, and apparently judges have gagged them and one journalist has apparently been sacked. Also, while the money I'm legally entitled to was stolen, and my baby and I went to get boiled water to warm up and lived in abject poverty due to the theft in court itself, the main judge screamed at me, saying that the robbers and the financial hearing had nothing to do with him. I was strictly not allowed to, and still I'm not allowed to know their names, probably as the judges know who they are. Maybe family of some. As for the mountain of perjury I now presented evidence for, that led to the child abuse and abuse of me that he ordered himself, he shouted again about that as well, to never do it again or I may not see my child, to present any evidence for perjury. Perjury is allowed. While his, I believe, close relative, maybe even his adult child or so, with his surname, seemingly has a private company that supplies courts, schools and hospitals with something, probably for vast sums of public money, and the conflict of interest is strictly, apparently, not allowed to be mentioned. Even the media know about it. And some are saying that is a drop in the ocean of similar cases. Conflict of interest of the judges who shatter lives of abused mothers and children, yet their own families apparently have got private contracts with public bodies. Well, hasn't Transparency International found out that there are thousands and thousands of illegal contracts? Now, as for the female judges, Baronesses Hale and Butler Sloss, par excellence judges, were between them in charge of the family court legislation and supervised those so-called courts. Both cases of custody battles and adoption, where again perjury by court staff was ignored and the victim strictly gagged, and hundreds imprisoned with no jury as well, for over 20 years between them. And despite knowing well about the level of human rights abuses, child abuse, lack of accountability, theft of the mother's due money, the enormous number of suicides, etc., kept quiet, and were rewarded with at least one of them being in charge of the ecclesiastic court that disciplines bishops, and both got their titles of baronesses and are peers. While allegedly dozens of thousands of the tortured and stolen from mothers have been pushed into debt or into food banks, bankruptcy, and most into severe permanent depression, Baroness Hale's daughter, with a degree in social sciences, not finance, is the CEO of the London Stock Exchange. According to some, earning many millions a year. Is officially one of 20 the most powerful women in Britain. That is women making decisions for women. And that is not all. The gravy train toots on. The following simply stinks and raises many questions about the ulterior motive behind this constant attack on the quotation marks primitive Muslims abusing women and the civilized Western world having to protect them. In 2019, in two open letters, over 200 MPs, lawyers, including several victims commissioners and quite a few academics, asked Theresa May, allegedly a very close friend of Baroness Hale, I don't know, who has supervised family courts for almost a decade, to order an independent inquiry into family courts, stating their serious concerns. She, or rather likely Hale and her together, women there to protect children, declined, saying there was no need for that. So she silenced the 200 plus professionals about the atrocities while promoting Baroness Hale as the Supreme Court President as a thank you for her expertise and work on family courts and all those suicides, I believe, in charge of all the judges in the country. Then Theresa May, a practicing Christian, boasted about the female power of her days that made her ecstatic, knowing that the torture of good, devoted parents and children continued. Good, devoted, family-orientated fathers are also wronged, abused, robbed both by their calculating partners and then family courts. Simply, marriage monogamy, love, being in love, family life are not in vogue. And healthy-minded people have no choice. Those rogue bastions of inhumanity annihilate all the rudimentary values of the society. Just hack at everything normal. It is totally inverted. Yet, conversely, the same Theresa May ordered a review or whatever, an inquiry into the Sharia laws to protect Muslim women, who are a tiny fraction compared to the Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and so on abused women decimated in the mainstream course, that she did not allow to be exposed for their serious crimes. Now, who disallowed an inquiry into the mainstream course while they allowed the same or review or whatever into the Sharia course? And why? Denigration of Muslims for some reason. Am I wrong? It's a question. Also, the chair of the British Human Rights is Baroness Faulkner, again a life peer. And a woman. When I wrote to her about this years ago, just like I had written to almost every single politician, journalist, etc. in the country for the last 22 years, alongside hundreds of other activists and amazing professionals I hugely admire, her department replied to me that their funds were limited and she could do nothing. Full stop, the case closed. That is yet another woman making decisions for us women and our children. Yet there is money for a review of the Sharia course. And in charge of that form of investigation was Baroness Cox, to whom, as far as I remember, I also wrote many years ago. She writes, see the last paragraph here, about her concern about the Sharia custody battles and how children over the age of 7 go to the father. Well, that is more civilized than what happened to my son, who had just turned 2, when they ripped him away from me, his 24/7 devoted mother, teetotal, family-orientated woman who cooked him lovely meals every day and did everything for and with him, mainly on my own. He started a preschool. And he was thriving, advanced. There were doctors' letters saying that. While all the police and doctors' letters praising me and describing the domestic abuse I had lived through for years were steadfastly ignored in court, and I had to be punished with the loss of custody as I was negative towards the father, who had married me hiding many secret lovers of 5-6 years in the background, replying to lonely heart adverts for flings straight after the wedding, depriving me of sufficient sleep, rest, making me eat food with pungent smells to exacerbate my bad pregnancy sickness, making me go to the gym with fever, depriving me of warm clothes outside in winter, prompting our GP to get involved and look into helping me flee, and then writing a letter for the court that was never mentioned. I then read about thousands and thousands of mothers battered and abused, neglected, losing custody of their young children to those abusers. Children aged 2, 3, 4, 5, 18 months. Where even newborns aged 4 or 5, 6 months taken away from their moms. Children pushed into such depression that some restarted wetting their beds even aged 8 or 10, pulling their hair, and many needed medication and counseling. Yet the abusers and their mistresses still had to get custody of them to avoid paying up, as probably the judges saw themselves in their situations and their own mistresses. Cox knows about this. All the politicians and journalists do, and have known from the start of their careers, I believe, yet have the audacity to besmirch Sharia courts for doing the same with children over the age of 7. Bystanders' apathy. Some people honestly have no shame or heart. Much as I know that there are very evil men among Muslims, like among any other ethnic minority, who do not deserve a family. And recently, the University of Buckingham law students asked Baroness Hale what was on the cards regarding family law legislations that needed introducing, and she said, Paraphrase. We need to legislate polyamory to protect women in it. That is the top priority. Do I need to comment on that? But in my humble opinion, it perfectly fits into the demonic milieu of family courts. In the States, like in Britain and other Western countries, there are quite a few cases where a man marries a woman or a woman a man, spouses who consent only to monogamy for life. They start a family. Then, shortly upon the wedding or having children, one of them blackmails the other one into attending orgies or spouse swap parties, whatever. If they are antiquated and backwards and refuse to go, the blackmailer says they will file for a divorce and either get full child custody or 50-50%. The devastated and scared parent, to protect their children and their need for them, grinds their teeth and does it, feeling dirty, filthy, violated afterwards. I have spoken to quite a few of them myself, both men and women, and they say they all felt like being raped. Once in family court, the crime is not treated as a crime at all, though many of them are too embarrassed to mention it, but some do. But the blackmailed parent is again shouted at and punished for being negative towards virtually their rapist, and either they lose child custody completely to them or are reduced to being on the par with their abuser. Baroness Hale does not think that needs regulating, and such abuse, catfishing someone into a marriage they do not consent to, severely punished. Such people should marry each other and not rape. But regulating polyamory is urgent for her. Didn't she work for the ecclesiastic court? British values? Christian values? Well, sod the victims of family courts. The most important thing is that her daughter is the CEO of the London Stock Exchange and wealthy herself. One US top family court judge was a couple of years ago revealed to regularly take part in organized large orgies with her husband. I can imagine the caliber of most of those judges, as what they do to abuse parents in courts cannot reflect the lifestyle of a loyal, dogmatic family man or a woman. Or maybe they lick the bottoms of such deviants above them for career ascent. And when they reach the zenith, they really feel proud of themselves, which is the most astonishing thing. And few of them are downtrodden and have no choice. I think we can see very strong systemic undercurrents of degeneracy at the helm of the establishment that drag us all, whether we agree to it or not, into their dark, filthy waters. But unfortunately, many drown. Many children and even babies among them.